to all the participants as well as our experts, welcome. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, the CEE Expert and Ever-Changing but Resilient Region webinar. My name is Marceli, and I will be your guide throughout this insightful session, I hope. Today, we are joined by our 4 distinguished experts. And just a little note, we will be joined by Krzysztof from Wolf Days as well. We've experienced some minor technical issues, but we're currently working on it, so he can join later on. But for now, we'll just carry on with our schedule. So let me introduce our experts to our participants. First off, Bogdan Kilita, partner at Value for Capital, a Poland and Central European Union-focused private equity firm. Bogdan is a regular expert in the CEE Expert series, both in the report and the webinar sections. However, it is consistently great pleasure to be able to host him here and in the report as well. Next up is our debutant for the first time as a part of CEE Expert. Right now, he's not present, but I'll introduce him to the people because he will be joining us later. Krzysztof Libiszewski, partner at Wolf Days Poland, and he leads the corporate M&A team at Wolf Days Poland, and he specializes in cross-border M&A transactions, takeovers, joint ventures, distressed situations, as well as corporate restructurization. And another expert is Michał Tesasz. He is also regular at the CEE Expert Series events. Michał has been active in the CEE M&A activity for about and more than 20 years. He is a partner and co-owner of Newton Business Development, a Prague-based investment boutique, part of Pandion Partners, which is an M&A-focused international advisory group with 25 members around the globe. And last but not least, for Data's very own Peter Miszczyk, business development manager. He is currently engaged in market analysis with a focus on international consultative sales for IT solutions with CEE expertise. Piotr's main area of research are the changes and specifics of each analyzed market within the European Union. He is involved in M&A trends analysis, focusing on the CEE segments of commercial real estate investments and as well as private equity and venture capital. So that's it in terms of the introducing our experts, and we also have great news. I can see that Krzysztof Libiszewski from...
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Yes. I was just introducing you and your persona to our participants. And I also explained that we've experienced some minor technical issues, but we are very grateful that we are all here and we can all see and hear each other. So once again, it is my great pleasure to welcome Krzysztof. Hello.
Welcome.
Yes, great. So after this introduction to the familiar faces or not so familiar faces, we can progress into the introduction part. So the past months have been quite challenging in the markets. And I know we always begin with the past 6 months. Last year was pretty challenging because it's a demanding and challenging business. But it is true. The past months have been quite challenging in the markets. And as a result, the region has been impacted by a downturn in economic activity. But in accordance with the main theme of this edition of the report and the webinar, an ever-changing but resilient region, we are noticing more and more positive forecasts and opinions regarding the M&A market activity. But are those just opinions? Can we really back up it with statistics and more than just an opinion? So the real question remains: what does the future really hold for us? And have the past months given us reasons for this so-called cautious optimism? Okay, so without further ado, let's hear what our experts have to say about the last few months, the current situation, and the outlook for the future in the M&A industry. So, Bogdan, the floor is yours. The virtual floor is yours, and yes, let's hear it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, indeed, we have seen some, I would say wavering, but maybe this is the right word. A bit of wobbling in the in the market for the beginning of this year, specifically. A little bit unusual given the as you probably our participants in the webinar will further see in the report, Romania, because we are now talking Romania specifically, has had quite I would call it a record number of deals, even some mega deals, some of them being PE related or PE exits. But 2024 started a bit in the sort of in a lackluster mood, let's say. We haven't seen so many. I mean, personally, we at V4C haven't seen so many so many opportunities on the market. We have been more focused on trying to develop our own. I think a couple of, and again talking specifically about Romania, I think a couple of main reasons have, to a certain extent, shadowed the appearance of new deals on the market, which we see actually coming back. So this is basically the good part in what happens next. But I think still, end of resolution for the geopolitical tensions, as well as kind of starting new other tensions, a bit farther from our region in Middle East, have to a certain extent, I would say, clouded, people's perception and sort of moved to do deals, strategics and financial investors alike. I think this unfortunately will still plague our region for the next while, but people, as we see, for the reasons which deals would, in my view, rebound, people would adapt and would adjust to this. I think the other key reason of maybe sort of not so many active pipeline or active deals on the market is the interest environment, which to a region like CEE plays probably a bit lesser role than in other more mature markets like US and Europe, where many of the deals are actually debt financed and debt sponsored. And thus have kind of cooled off the financial investor activity in those parts of the region, in CEE, Poland, Romania, and sort of also Czech Republic. I think this interest environment plays maybe a bit lesser role, maybe a secondary role, but it does still sort of play a role in people's mood to do deals. As some of them, especially in the mid-market and upper mid-market section of the M&A environment in these parts of the world, it's still used. Although, as I said, maybe not as intense in other geographies. I think these were the main reasons. But as I said, I think I also believe that people will adapt and will adjust to these new realities, and we see them sort of adapting and adjusting. And I guess, first of all, acknowledging the fact, mainly entrepreneurs, I would guess, helped by advisors, obviously by consultants, acknowledging the fact that they might need a partner for sort of particular turbulences that they may find in the next little while, whether those are sort of as I said, maybe geopolitical or other types of turbulences. We see inflation still being high and remaining high. We are sure that they will come to a resolution where the famous sort of valuation gap between the buyers and sellers will be less and less so, and will allow to sort of for people to transact. I think this is about what has happened in the beginning of the year. Probably we'll switch to what will happen in the next question, I would assume. No.
Okay, thank you for your opening speech. As always, it's great to hear your perspective. especially that usually you're accompanied by your fellow Romanians, like Ruxandra, for instance. But this time, you're the only one representing the perspective of Romania. But we can find Ruxandra's comment in the report. But it's great that you're here and that we were able to hear it out. Okay, so now moving forward, next up is the new phase in the CEE Expert Series. Krzysztof Libiszewski, partner at Wolf Ties Poland. I already introduced you while we were experiencing some issues, but it's great that we've managed to get you here on time. And I'm eager to hear what you have to say, because from what I know, your colleagues wrote a comment for the report, but you're here representing yourself as well as Wolf Ties. So I'm eager to hear your perspective and your opinion.
Sure, thank you. And again, this is a definite testament to the fact that technology, as much as advanced it is, it sometimes plays tricks on us all. So I'm glad I'm with you. And as you asked me to give some opinions on the economic outlook, and especially an outlook for the M&A markets in the region, I may reply to this request with the following. So whenever I'm in recent years asked to provide some predictions or some statements as to what the future will bring for the economies, I always respond with a smile because the last, say, 4 years were a roller coaster ride to worldwide economies, and Central and Eastern Europe definitely has not been an exception. And in many ways, the region is facing additional risk factors that are not witnessed in a quieter places in the world. But again, are there quieter places in the world in nowadays situation, and whereby the references to geopolitical tensions, they really are voiced again from various places in the world. But so let me start with the following. Whenever in 2020 COVID pandemic hit, many predicted significant difficulties for the economies. And in spite early predictions, at least for Poland and great many countries in the region, COVID pandemic did not prove as impactful as at early stages we might have predicted. In fact, 2021 was, to many of us, a record year in terms of M&As and FDIs. But then again, the public spending and governmental aid to businesses, it fueled inflation, and this coincided in time with the outbreak of war in Ukraine. That was yet another shock to the countries and businesses in CEE. But even this situation evolves. Say in 2022, I recall that my colleagues and I, we all were simply following the headlines to see if Kiev will hold up and what would be the impact for the neighboring region. And while the war somehow is still overshadowing the region, to my perception, the investors, they already somehow accommodated to this situation. And but the situation indeed still impacts the businesses. The natural resources prices, they further drove the inflation high and interest rates high. But even this has been somehow recovered by the economies, and inflation in Poland is now in the region of 3% rather than record high 16 or 18% a year or two ago. And now as to Poland. Poland for 30 years, it really has went through a continuous growth year by year, increasing GDP. And whereas we started in 1989 as second poorest nation in Europe, currently Poland is ranked the sixth largest economy in Europe. And we overcame Spain in terms of wealth of individuals, like average wealth of individuals. So the situation, geopolitical situation definitely plays a role. Poland has witnessed the first recession ever in 2023. And I would say the last quarters of 2023 and first quarter of 2024 were definitely ones that were at freeze. There was, what was noticeable was, in fact, a great slowdown in inbound and especially large-scale transactions, and slowdown in terms of FDIs incoming to the country. And whereas the number of deals somehow has made up for the loss of foreign incoming M&As by activeness of local corporates. Definitely the first quarter of 2024 was a slow one. Now, in terms of what are the predictions going forward, we may say that definitely in terms of April and March and May and also June that started, there is more and more interest coming from US buyers in terms of the targets in Poland, which is always a sign of changing moods as it regards sentiment for the region and Poland itself. In terms of most active sectors in the economy to be followed in terms of M&A market, it is definitely consumer, retail, and technology companies that are now being targets for acquisitions, and also for Poland and some countries in the region, it is renewable energy sources that drive investment and M&A activity. Poland and also some of CEE countries, it also witness high interest of healthcare sector and targets there, as people in the region, they get wealthier and wealthier and definitely pay more attention to health consideration. So all in all, in spite all those various adverse drivers for the economies and businesses in the region, I would say that second quarter gave us optimism in terms of what the future might bring to us all. But as I said, with all this roller coaster situation and challenges that we saw in the last few years, it is really hard to give predictions. So let us stay on positive note, but let us also be aware of the challenges that are still there.
Okay, so thank you for this insightful debut of yours. It was great to hear all your thoughts on various topics, especially when we spoke briefly before, and I told you that we also are expecting a bit of forecast for future, and I said that most of the experts are quite optimistic, and you laughed and said, yeah, optimism is the way. So while you were speaking, and you kind of highlighted the fact that year in, year out, throughout the years, Poland, but as well as the whole region, showed that we can manage in the crisis situations, and at the end of the day, we always stay afloat. So yeah, it was great to hear many also statistics and knowledge in terms of numbers. Yeah, it was a great debut. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
And I'm really glad and happy that we managed to get you here despite the technical stuff. It just added a bit flavor to the debut.
So. The next sessions will definitely be smoother in terms of IT cooperation.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so now we can move in terms of geography down south to Czechia, because next up is our well-seasoned expert, Michal Tesasz. So yeah, we're really happy to hear the Czechia perspective and your personal views on current matters. So the floor is yours.
Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for the invitation. Naturally, I would like to a bit interlink what Krzysztof said about Poland and the region, but specifically from the perspective of what I saw on the Polish market in, I would say, several 5 or even more years, that I would say the state-owned or majority state-owned companies were quite active on the M&A market. But in the Czech Republic, it was not so common, with the exception, let's say, of ČEZ, the energy company. But now, based on the crisis in Ukraine and the energy crisis related, the Czech government has changed, the approach. which we could see last year in significant deals like takeover of Net4Gas, the gas transmission company here, which was not doing well because the Russian gas transport was missing. Therefore, the company was close to bankruptcy, in fact. But as a strategic asset, it was takeover back by the state, even if it was naturally privatized more than 20 years ago or 20 years ago. So we can see kind of, I would say, steps which are not visible here for a long time, namely in the energy. Sometimes the state is doing the steps which are not clear for me from the perspective of the strategic aspect, like takeover of some petrol stations chain, which doesn't make sense for me from the state level. But in the transmission, gas transmission and similar companies, it is understandable. But definitely the state has started to play a different role than before, because it was the selling party before, and right now to some extent naturally it's also buying party. But let's say that energy was naturally and is one of the traditional sectors alongside the ones mentioned before with Bogdan and Krzysztof, like technology, like healthcare. But what I even pointed out in my article is that at least from Czech perspective, there was quite a lot of, or there is quite a lot of activity in the non-traditional sectors like football clubs. So many transactions, many changes of the ownership, which very historically were driven only, I would say, by the status perspective of the new owners. So to get some, special social status, so the special visibility. But what we see, I would say, in last 1 year, it's more driven by the business, by financials. As the environment for this specific activity has improved significantly, because it's true that we were one of the last ones in the region to significantly improve income from the broadcasting rights and from the marketing rights, around football and around the league, the first league. So once this improved, and once you can see that some of the clubs are improving, and actually the intensive work with the fans, and therefore increasing significantly the attendance, but also income from what you can sell to the fans. So it becoming kind of, I would say, hot sector in last 1 year, and it's ongoing with some ongoing transactions these days. So it's kind of very untraditional one. And there is one more point which I wanted to put on the table, which is strong activity of Czech-based investors abroad, and namely, in fact, in Western Europe, but also, let's say, in overseas. And I would say there are two groups of. One group are already kind of traditional ones, like Daniel Křetínský with his EPH group, who is consolidating and, I would say, buying out specific assets across Western Europe for already quite a long time. And the last pieces that he took is the kind of, I would say, very high branded Royal Mail of the UK in Britain, which is a significant transaction from financial perspective, but also naturally from the traditional view on the UK market, and it was definitely not easy. But what we can see also activity in defense industry, which is naturally very much fueled by the war in Ukraine, but also on the other conflicts arising across the globe. So the Czech defense groups are significantly acquiring abroad, and it's in Italy, it's in overseas in the US. It's really very, very, very much spread it and very much active, because the spending of the governments in this field is naturally going very high. it becomes extremely hot topic for the broader society to be ready for some hard steps that can happen in the geopolitical scene. So it's something that was not so I would say common in the last, let's say, 5 years, but in the last 1 or 2 years and freshly ongoing, it's something which is starting to be very common. So I would say that the country is not only, let's say, focused on local deals, like that. There are a lot of private equity companies scouting on the market and trying to utilize the succession period of of the people who founded the business after the revolution, but right now they are at the senior age and they don't have the family to succeed with the company, and they are selling it on the market, which is the common driver, I believe, everywhere in the region. There are actually some common deals, outbound and inbound, strategic or financial ones. But these kind of, I would say, new segments are arising, which I'm happy about because it's a good healthy sign that it's not about just few big mega deals that can happen, and it can be driven by the geopolitical scene or by the governments or by some specific opportunities. But it's really something that is kind of much broader and therefore healthier for the whole economy.
Okay, thank you. That was quite insightful, and you also tapped into many topics. Also circling back to the beginning of your part, you talked about this non-traditional sectors rise, especially with football and football clubs take over in Czechia, and I found it really interesting while reading your part. And also it kind of get into this whole Euro and football craze that is going on right now. So that is actually quite a coincidence, but a nice one. And also what you said about the state, the government becoming the buy side. We've seen it also in Hungary with the Budapest airport, I think, this year. So yeah, there's definitely something there. So thank you once again. Year in, year out, your presence at CEE Expert series is invaluable. So it was great to experience that. Okay, so last but not least, for Data's very own Peter Miszczyk will talk about his point of view as well as the VDR provider point of view. So Peter, the floor is yours, and yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Can you hear me? Just wanted to check.
Yes.
Okay, it's okay. So once again, hi everyone, pleasure to be here. So at first, I fully subscribe with what Bogdan, Krzysztof, and Michal said about the each economies. That indeed, apart from challenges, despite of these challenges which are met from the investor's perspective, this is a motto that it will be universal despite all of these tensions and pressures. CEE remained the resilient region that becomes more mature, and this is a perspective I would love to share today. So focusing not on each economies, but in general, having in mind some global trends that are observed. So maybe if we go to the ball points that are on the second page, just to keep it in mind. We have met the certain economic challenges that that our region has met. Of course, those are the global. So the geopolitical tensions mentioned on many forums, and this is the background I would love to share. What was said by the events I had the pleasure to participate in Baltic region and Central and also Eastern Europe. We can say that. The high financial costs and the geopolitical tensions are the ones that are somehow the need to be cared about to satisfy the investors, I would say. to prove, of course, that the Central and Eastern Europe is the safe and attractive region. Maybe having a focus on the specialists from the investment banks. The Morgan Stanley, I will just quote these the specialists, which were the panelists on one of the events, that the most busy downturn is behind us. So, like Krzysztof has mentioned, the 2021 was a record year. 2022 was a time of hesitation and looking into the headlines and what the future will bring trend. So, being cautious. And 2023 was a kind of slowdown, freezing, and putting on hold. Right now, starting with the third quarter, which will be next month, we can observe that there is a cautious optimism, and this is a one universal opinion we can observe for each discussions with the clients. So not only the M&A and private equity world, but also the venture capital, real estate, and other branches. Seeing the market resilience, we can say that the CEE is an adaptable region, proves its maturity. And we can go to the optimism that is observed in a past page, probably it will be the optimism in M&A. So the geopolitical concerns, we can say that it has decreased. As of peak 2022 has dropped. We can see also the signs of rebounds. Indeed, the mid-capital companies are in the move for the team making. Also, what is interesting what's interesting is the IPO sectors, as it enhanced globally, and the enthusiasm of both issuers and investors has risen. According to the EY of Poland first quarter report, in the EMEA region, we can observe 40% more IPOs in terms of number and 58% in terms of value. So a comparison year to year, which gives a great or at least positive prospect that the IPO, which in the past years, of course, was in a great stagnation, could accelerate this year or the next quarters. As examples, we have the Dr. Irena Eris in Poland that is having its efforts to go to the stock exchange. Also, we have a past project, past event of Romanian JT Group Oil, which has raised 4 billion euros in its IPO. From sectoral influences, of course, energy. The clean energy transitions which will lead, and it already leads, the consolidations, and the current market is on the buy side. And this is due to of course, the Brussels regulations, which imposes the transition and going into green by 2030. So we have 6 years ahead. So the movement has just started to acquire these assets, which will help to produce oversupply of the energy and, of course, storage it and sell in the future. What else can be said about the emerging trends is the production and manufacturing, of course, declines in 2 economies of Western Europe, namely France, and more significant in Germany. Interesting fact, the manufacturing segment of Germany equals to the Polish GDP. So the 10% of declines in this segment gave us, of course, some declines in other players of CEE, such as Czechia and Slovakia's automotive branches, which, of course, which are contributing for 12 and 17% of their GDPs. Some, of course, trends can be response to, not even all segments, but others. And that could be definitely the trend of ESG, which becomes the increasingly important criteria and the kind of, I would say, standard. My clients observe that the ESG standard is becoming a differentiator, so a factor that we can somehow give the added value for the perspective of outbound investors. Some trends maybe focusing on real estate. We see that the post-pandemic consumer trends are transforming, and for the fourth year after the pandemic outbreak, we see there are some interesting movements on the real estate market. The first one is, of course, office market, which has dropped in its market share, and giving the place and base for mixed-use investments, which will be not only ESG compliant, but also adapted to the changing needs of the consumers. The second most interesting, in my opinion, would be the revenge traveling trend. So after the years of pandemic, lockdowns, the consumers, we all getting back to travel again with a double strength and force, I would say. So that this trend observed by the specialists doing the investments in the hospitality, especially, those observations gives us the bigger market share. Actually, according to the Collier 7A snapshot, the hospitality, so hotels, only hotels, has gained its market share year to year 7 to 15%. So this is the highest growth, and we observe the hotels are the targets not only for CEE, of course, but also for other economies, European economies such as Southern Europe, Spain, Portugal, and so on. So maybe going to the last point, the future outlook. So what do we observe might play the key role is, once again, energy, second, TMT/IT, and the healthcare. Like mentioned before, these segments are the hotspots and will remain in the future. And of course, from the other area that we might observe is the politics. We are after the European Union Parliament elections. We see the trends that are ongoing, and in general scope, this year 65 countries will have its elections, and that means another agenda, another plans for instance, FDI, and we can observe how the situation will evolve.
Okay, so I believe that's it, Peter. From your point of view, thank you for. I'm repeating myself, but once again, insightful and very valuable part. Okay, so that means we're pretty much finished with the main topics and our expert speeches. From what I've seen, there aren't any questions in the chat. So I think it means that it was just so complex that it left no questions to the audience. But no need to worry if any questions arise later on while reading the report or while thinking or discussing with your colleagues the event. You can reach out to us or to the experts via LinkedIn. Their profiles are linked in the report. So don't worry, any questions won't be lost. You can always reach out and we'll forward the question to the said expert. And for the closing of this event, I would like to remind you that the report is just premiering right now. So all the attendees will get a separate email with link to download the report. And if somehow the mail will be lost in the spam section, don't worry, it's available on fordata's.group.com website, and we'll also post it on our LinkedIn profile. But if anyone has any questions from the attendees, it's right now the time to type it in the chat. If not, I think we can end it here. Also, be sure to read the report. Besides our esteemed experts, there are many more experts that contributed to the report. Like I said, for instance, Ruxandra, or Adinel Tudor. He's also a new addition to the CEE Expert family. So make sure to read his comment also. And yeah, maybe some of the experts want to add anything else, or maybe you got questions between the experts. So it's time to ask them now. If not, yeah, I don't think that anyone has any questions. If not, it was my great pleasure to host this event and to experience your opinions and outlook for the future live. Also, don't worry, the event was recorded. So for those interested, we'll post it in suitable channels. And yes, once again, thank you to the experts, to the attendees. It was a great and valuable start to the day. And to all the fans of the Euros, my fingers crossed for your national teams. I hope they will perform just as good as the Romanian national team, because I spoke with Bogdan about it before the webinar. So thank you a lot, take care, and have a great day.